Oh, got it. Yep, there we go. I guess we're live now. Awesome. Yeah. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Harari International Film Festival. My name is Tosin Jeruba. I am a volunteer here at Her Film Festival, an international film festival, and with me here is Claire Loy, and the gifted Claire Loy, and she's going to talk to us about screen performance. So, I guess I'll just hand it over to you then, Claire.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me, and hello to everyone and anyone who might be watching. So I kind of wanted to have a chat tonight about a few different things, not just about screen acting, but maybe about how you become an actor, because I understand, the festival is geared toward kind of like the younger side of the filmmaking community. And sometimes I think becoming an actor or finding out how to become an actor can seem like this big mysterious thing that may not be for you. So I just want to reassure people that there's a way into becoming an actor for everyone. So the first thing that I would recommend is have acting as your hobby. If you're like when you're in secondary school, and even if you're in university and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do if I want to become an actor, just have it as your hobby first, and then you can decide whether or not it is for you. But there's a huge difference between the hobby version of acting and the professional version of acting. Right, your first port of call would definitely be to find some training for yourself, be that full-time or part-time. One is neither better than the other, but one will suit the individual better than the other. So if you want to train full-time, then you can obviously do it straight out of school, or wait a while and do it as an adult and go to university. But what's really important at the start of that training is to get it into your brain and into your practice that you must do what's called your due diligence. And that is basically doing your own research. So the internet will be your friend. So when you're finding out about what college you should go onto the college's website, read all about it, find out who you might know or have some connection to who has gone to that college, and ask them for an honest appraisal about it. And if it does, just because it's RADA, for example, doesn't mean it is going to be the which is considered one of the best schools in the world. It may not be the best school for you. So you need to investigate what type of experience you want to have and what type of experience the university is offering. And that will go for full-time or part-time. But say you want to train part-time, because maybe financially you can't afford to train full-time, which will be the case for the majority of people, then you can still become a professional actor whilst training part-time. But it's going to be more difficult to find effective, high-quality training. So again, have a look online, Google acting classes in your area, and ask working actors who you might know, or even if you don't know them, throw out an email or a Facebook request, or ask them on Twitter or whatever, and ask their advice on where you can train. So signs of a good part-time training instructor will be they won't use things like make your dreams come true, follow your dreams, become a star, I can make you a star. They won't be using language like that. They will be talking about acting technique, how you can work consistently and find your own way of expressing yourself as an actor. And they should have all of that information on their website. And again, don't ever be afraid to ask questions of other actors or directors. The same will go for directors as well when you're looking for your training. It's always fascinating to me when I come across actors who are afraid to ask questions. It is your job to look out for yourself and to ask. If you have any confusion about something, or if you get a bit of a weird feeling that maybe this isn't what it's all cracked up to be, just ask someone. Someone will always be there to help you, because there are a lot of dubious people who are looking to take money from people who want to become an actor or a director or in any of those creative fields. And those people are just in it for the money. You want to find somebody who has professional practice, loads of experience, loads of training, and has integrity. But the only way you're going to find out that is kind of to dip your toe in. So a way of doing that would be to ask the part-time course or even the full-time course if you can do what's called like an audit of the class. So that would be you go to the class and you just observe. And sometimes they will allow you to take part. And then you can see if it's for you. If it's a university you're going to, go to the open day. Spend some time there. See if the university, if they're offering a degree program, have some summer courses that you would be able to take. And then you're able to see, do you like the place? Do you like the people? Do you like the ethos? Do you like what they're covering? Or maybe you're looking for something else. Sometimes you might go away and train to do something entirely different and become an actor later on in life, but it's never too late. And there is a way in for everybody. I'm just looking at my notes here now because I've just done. Okay, so when you're looking for classes, full-time or part-time, whatever it might be, understand that it's going to take a long time to develop as an actor. So you might have loads of talent, loads of instinct, but that's different from having craft, and craft takes a long time to develop. And you need to have patience and give yourself patience and understand that you are going to be developing as an actor throughout your entire career. Also know that your training will never be finished. You are going to be training always. So like I've trained like in an actual college, and then I continue to go to class. So I have an acting teacher that I will go to regularly. And if I have a job coming up, I will increase the number of classes that I'm doing with him. I go to accent coaching, voice coaching. When pre-COVID, I would go to movement classes. You can go to improv classes, but you need to go to them constantly and throughout your life as an actor. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money on them, but you do need to continue your training. And that training can happen online. Actually, online training, some subjects that you will be studying will suit online training more than others. But for me, I think accent training works very well online. So if you are an Irish actor, you are going to need obviously your own accent. But because of the shows that shoot here, you're going to need a variety of English accents and definitely a standard American accent. If you're anywhere else in the world, you're going to need an American accent and probably have some variation of a UK accent as well. And be able to flip in and out of them for your self-tapes, for your auditions, for work. Let me have a little look here now at my notes. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so say you're finished your training, or you don't know if you want to be an actor, or even after your training, or you're in school and you're like, oh my God, like, what can I don't know what to do. Just practice, right? That's the best thing you can do. And if you want to do screen acting, considering we're at a film festival, what you do is you practice self-taping. So you go online, you go to the BBC script library. It's open, I think, to everybody internationally. You download some of the scripts that are there and you practice acting those scenes. And you can self-tape them using your phone. So when you are taping for screen, you always have your phone in landscape mode. Never like this, ever. It's like this, just the shape of a cinema screen or a TV, right? You pop it in front of you, make sure we can see your face on the camera, and you just run the scene with what's called a reader. So that's the other person who's helping you out. They don't necessarily have to be an actor who's helping you, but it's always best if they are. Sometimes you have no choice, but it's your mom or your dad or your brother or your housemate, right? but always have a reader to bounce off of, and you just practice. If you're out of work, say you're an actor and you're in between jobs, practice. You never stop. When you have a job coming up, actually, that's the time when you probably should be upping your preparation for that job. So a friend of mine, he was the lead in a hugely successful comedy show for the BBC, and it was almost entirely improvised. So after each day on set, he would go to improv class in the weeks in between when he wasn't shooting, he would be in improv class. And that he was saying like the people in the class couldn't understand why he was coming to class, because he's not a well-known comedic improviser. And he was trying to explain, well, that's why, because I never stop developing that particular part of my craft. Okay, so you've decided to become an actor, you've trained full-time, you've trained part-time. I want to talk a little bit now about economic privilege. Some people will be able to go from school to having their parents rent an apartment for them whilst they're training full-time in university. And other people are going to have to stay living at home, working a full-time job and train at nighttime. Okay, one does not make a better actor than the other, but you need to be aware that it's a really tough game. Training is really expensive and there's certain sacrifices you're going to have to make. So if you're like me, you don't come from a place of economic privilege, it can be kind of difficult to not get angry or bitter about how easy it seems for other people. You just have to get on with it. Your own journey into your professional career is your own journey, and no two are the same. So for me, I worked full-time in various different jobs, and I used my wages from that to pay rent, pay my food, pay my bills, and whatever was left over went towards training. For other people, they would work full-time and save up and then take a year or two off and train full-time in those 2 years. There's a different way about it, but I just wanted to flag that because actors, and particularly actors from white upper middle class British families, are completely overrepresented in actors in our world. No matter what story is being told, which is shifting a little bit at the moment, the first port of call always seems to be for your London-centric type of actor, but most of the world isn't that. But it can be more difficult for everybody else to get a look in. However, that is changing. And the more actors who just continue on, relentless, and it can feel relentless, and you can't really take your foot off the pedal, so to speak, the more of us that there are present in the industry, the better. But that might also mean that we have to create our own work, which can be liberating and at the same time can be limiting. And it can be limiting because you can feel that you're spread yourself a little bit too thin. So the remedy to that would be to build your own network of people, or your own network of like-minded creative people who are all working toward the same goal, but we all might be coming from a slightly different direction. So then you're thinking to yourself, okay, well then how do I find those people? And you find those people through, I suppose, making honest creative choices for yourself. So for example, okay, so one thing that I would recommend that everybody do here who's attending anything in the Her International Film Festival would be to join the mailing list, have a look who's interacting with people online on the social media using whatever hashtags are available here, and connecting that way, because the fact that you're all here means that there's something in common, something creative that is going to connect you. So find those people, use your social media effectively to network, right? So that would mean, so effective networking requires you to do the thing that is probably most difficult, and that is to be yourself, to be authentic and to be genuine. So whatever you're posting up, make sure it's true to yourself, and that if someone wants to interact with the thread or whatever it might be, that it's something that's going to be positive for you, and that you're not lying, pretending you're into this particular thing only to get attention from someone, right? So be authentic. And that means that you will only ever attract people who are not so much like-minded, because you don't want to put yourself into just a bubble of the same person, right? But people who are respectful and people who have a shared interest. So that's a way of finding that, what I call your creative family. So finding like-minded creatives who you want to work with. And then how do you reach out to them if you're the one doing the reaching out, and if they're the one going, hey, here I am? So again, be really honest. And what I always do is I find email to be the best way of engaging with someone. So say you've already done a couple of like chats in a thread online or whatever, I might, if I can find their email, and most people, if you want to be contacted professionally, make sure that your email is available either on your website. For actors, you might have IMDb. You might have a little web page made for yourself, like free, where you have your contact information. I would contact the person, say who I am first and foremost, right? Because you don't want to come across like a creep, right? So say who you are, say why you're contacting them, describe your own work, maybe links to your previous work, and say that you enjoy their work and would they ever like to collaborate. Be full on honest about it. Don't don't sell too hard, and then also don't be too vague at the same time. Okay, so that's networking. I'm trying to think what look up IMDb. Okay, so right, here's how you use IMDb as a young actor. You've gone to a film festival, you've seen a short film and you've thought, oh my God, that short film was amazing. Get the program for the film festival or go on to IMDb. So that's the database of every film ever made and who was involved in it, etc. Find out who they are and message them. I really enjoyed your film that I saw at the Her Film Festival. This particular reason is why I enjoyed it. Be specific, because specificity is your friend as an actor, as a director, and when you're trying to network. And leave it at that. Don't say, I'm looking for a job, will we work together? Just open up a conversation. They may get back to you. They may not. They might get back to you in 6 months' time, whatever. But they will not know about you and not know about your interest in them unless you tell them who you are. So no one is going to discover you sitting in a cafe thinking about being in a film. Someone will discover you if you go, hi, I'm Claire. I really enjoyed that film. I love that scene when this happened and then that happened. Then boom, you're there, you're on their radar. But it requires a lot of work and a lot of courage as well. But the courage just to be yourself. Again, you only want to be attracting people who are authentically themselves. Okay, so the same goes whether you're an actor approaching a director or a director approaching an actor. So as I said earlier, there are some people in the industry who perhaps aren't the most honest of people. Now, they tend to be on the peripheries, but when you're starting off, you will discover them, right? You'll find them. There are pretend teachers who are just taking money from you. There are directors who are asking for money for you to be in their film, like this kind of thing. Never give money to an actor or pay money to the actors, but never pay a director to be in their film. Or never pay an agent to be represented by them. So how do you find, how can you figure out if this person is legit or not, right? So here are the tips that I would give both actors and directors. So actors looking to see if this director who has a casting call out is legit, and this director looking to see if this actor knows what they're doing, right? So one, are they using their real name? You'd be surprised the number of people who don't have their real name on their social media or on their email. Two, have they explained what the casting call is for? Are they being specific about the roles that are available? Is the actor being specific about what role they are applying to? Are there links to previous work? And are they being open about what type of film it is? So say there is a casting call, we're looking for a young actor, female, 17 to 21. Okay. And then they give a little bit of a description of the character. They give the character a name, the type of role it is in terms of, is it a lead role, a supporting role? Is the role paid? What are the shoot dates? What a brief synopsis of the film and an email address to contact if you want to apply. That's legit. If any of those things are missing, you can ask if there is an email to ask. And if there's nothing coming back from them, don't apply. You need to, look after yourself. And the same for directors. So sometimes, and I find this fascinating, directors are a little bit afraid to approach actors. I would say there's no such thing as an actor too successful for you to contact, but you just need to figure out how to contact them. Again, Even if they have an agent, if you can get your hands on their email address, that's probably the best way to go. Email them, explain who you are, links to your previous work if you have it. If you're a student, tell them where you're studying, tell them why you're contacting them, and you don't have to be too you don't have to be lay down all of these compliments in the email. Just be, straight up. This is you, this is me, I really like your work, this is what I have in mind, let me know if you're interested. They may say yes, they may say no, they may say nothing, which is something in the industry people are going to have to get used to, silence coming back. Or they might go, oh, let's have a chat about that. Chatting is an undervalued resource when it comes to collaborating with people. So even if you're having a Zoom coffee with someone or an in-person coffee, it's always best to have some sort of a meeting before working with someone. So you get the lie of the land, you get to understand how the other person likes to communicate and how you can adapt your communication style to them, and then vice versa. And it's the same for in the room. I know I'm flying through a whole lot of information here, so if there's any questions, just interrupt, because I've got a lot to cover here. Right, okay. Looking at my notes, directors and actors, right, directing. I know there will be a few actors here who are early career and a few directors probably at the same level. And it's really important that those two groups of people are able to work together. And sometimes those relationships are the last thing to develop on a film set, but they're actually the most important. It's one thing for a director to be obsessed with framing and how this is going to be lit and how this is going to cut together and all of that. But you can be as obsessed about that as you want, but unless you know how to direct performance, you're never going to get the film you want. When you're watching films and you're going, that film is amazing, try and take your technical eye away for a second and only watch performance and see if you can pinpoint what it is about the performances that make the film great. It can be really hard when somebody is coming at it from a director's point of view, when they are, just in love with that cinematographer and weren't they amazing? It can be really hard, but you have got to do it. And if you want to be a good director of a performer in your film, I would highly recommend going to acting classes. You don't have to be a good actor. That doesn't matter. The point of it is for you to get access to what in progress acting looks like. Because when you watch a film, you're watching the actor having been lit correctly, edited correctly, costumed correctly, and the scenes that you're watching are scored. That looks completely different to a performance on set live. And you've got to get used to watching a live performance and how you can direct it, know how, what beat might be missing and how to communicate that with the actor. Equally, the actor has got to do the same amount of work on that, how they communicate effectively with a director. Don't be afraid to give direction, and actors learn how to take a direction. If you don't understand what the direction is, ask. And this next point is really important because the best director I ever worked with was brilliant at this. The actor asking a question and then the director saying the following: oh, I don't know. Revelation. It's shocking to me how many directors won't admit that they don't know the answer to a question. It doesn't make you a weak director. It makes you the opposite, because when you say, I don't know, you have immediately gained the respect and trust of your cast, because they will feel free to ask you a question and open up a conversation about what it is that might be missing in the scene or what it is that the actor asked about. I hope that makes sense. But I can't stress enough, if you want to be the type of director that directs performance, you have got to go to acting classes. And if you're the worst actor in the acting class, that's fine. You're not an actor, you're a director. Okay, but what you're getting used to is seeing how actors work in progress. Equally, for actors, when you're on set, this can come as a bit of a shock when you're starting off. There is no timetabling in on the call sheet or on the day for you to warm up. You got to do it yourself. You will frequently not even have a chance to rehearse. You're going to have to come ready, primed for action, literally. But directors, and if there's any producers, if you can timetable in rehearsal time, you are saving yourself hours when it comes to when you're shooting on set, because your actors will come in ready to go and be able to do take after take of usable options for you. You won't be, you know, having the first 2 takes just being discovering, because your discovering would have happened in your rehearsal. I think most of the really top directors use rehearsal now. Even if it's only a day, at least it's something, because that time in between the rehearsal and the shoot, loads of stuff is festering away in the actor and in the director. And so what you're going to get on the day would be a really clean, precise, specific, and usable take. Okay, I'm running out of breath. Right, networking, about being yourself. I'd like to talk a little bit too about rejection. And rejection, I think, might be too strong of a word, but I can't think of a different word to use about the amount of times that you get told no, as actors and as directors. So you audition for stuff, lovely. You spent a long time doing your self-tape. You've worked the scene, you've sent off the tape, and then you hear nothing, ever again, which is a rejection, right? You get told no. You get down to the last 2 after 4 rounds of callbacks, and you don't get the job. You pitch as a director for a job, and you don't even hear anything back. You contact an actor to be in your film, and they say no. So how do you deal with it? 1, it's not personal. And the more experience you get, the more you begin to realize, actually, that is true. It isn't personal, but you will take it personally. So what I do is I just own it. I go, oh, I didn't get that role. And I allow myself to be a little bit sad, and then I move on. But if I deny myself, the disappointment kind of all festers up into bitterness. And that's the last thing you want to be. You don't want to be bitter. I've skipped over quite a lot there because I suspect it might come up in a question, hopefully, if people are here. Oh, right. Okay. Practical thing here. When you're an actor or a director, the chances are you're going to be self-employed. Get used to keeping your own receipts and doing your own accounting. That would be, actually, I should have put that at the top of the list, because the last thing you want is an enormous tax bill that you forgot to pay over about 5 years. So get used to keeping your receipts, would be another one, I would say. Okay, did I see some hands going up for questions? I don't know. How do I get the hands?
I'm not entirely sure if that was a thumbs up as
right.
for approval, or that wasn't actually a question. I'm sorry, was that a question? Anyone?
No, it's okay. I can talk about loads more. Okay, so maybe I would like to talk about casting and auditions. And this is for actors and directors. So for actors first, right? How do you find auditions? So the main one would be through casting directors. And how do you find casting directors? Well, again, you go on to IMDb. So depending on where you are in the world, it will be harder or easier to get access to those casting directors. But what I would do is I would look up my favorite shows on IMDb, favorite shows that are made near you, right? Look them up on IMDb, see who's casting them, and contact that person. In a casting office, there is usually the head casting director and then multiple casting assistants or other casting directors, but there will be a primary casting director. Each of those people will require a separate email from you. Tailor your email to them specifically. Use their first name, if they have made it public, right? Use their first name and tell them who you are very quickly. You literally just say, hello, my name is Claire Loy. Link to any work that you have on camera. that should be hosted on Vimeo is probably the best and safest one for that one. A link to or include your headshot, CV, say where you're based and why you're contacting them. So it might be, oh, I understand that you're contacting or you're casting such and such a show. I feel I would be appropriate to that world, whatever it might be. Bang it off. Should be no longer than a 2-minute read, right? Maximum 2 minutes for them to read, because they are extremely busy. But say you don't have any work. You're straight out of college, you're straight out of training. What do you send them? Headshot is the first thing. So the headshots should look like you on a good day. Do not go out and buy a special top to wear for your headshot. Wear your favorite top that gives you the most confidence. Wear that and have a nice clean look. When I say that, I mean, don't wear a whole load of makeup, don't have a whole load of contouring, and make sure we can see your face so that it is like you don't have your hair in front of your face, right? Basic, simple stuff. Doesn't have to be fancy, and you don't have to spend 500 euros on it, especially when you're starting out. So they know what you look like now because you've sent them that. Your CV, tell them a little bit about your training and about any previous credits that you might have, even if they're amateur credits and you've just done them in college or with your friends or whatever, because what that will do is it'll express to them where your area of performance interest lies. Put in any hobbies that you have, because you want a little bit of your personality to be in there as well. And if you have any special skills, right? So special skills can be physical stuff, fighting. You might be a brilliant horse rider. You don't lie about horse riding. Don't lie about the dangerous stuff. If you can drive, put that in. If you have a second language, 100% put that in. And if you have footage of you acting in that other language, definitely send that along as well. So you have so far now you have your headshot, your CV, but you've never done a TV show. You've never done film. So you don't have yourself on camera. What do? You rewind to what I was saying about going to BBC Scripts Library or to any of the scripts that are available online, and you film very basic. So you should see the way I'm framed here in the Zoom. That would do fine for what I'm talking about. You tape a 1-minute scene and you send them that. So use a good reader because you want the performance to be really good in this one because it's so basic and simple, right? So you send you have a good reader and you send them that. But that means, right, that you have to cast yourself. So choose a suitable role and use your own accent. In this particular, even if you're brilliant at doing American accents, brilliant at doing German accents, right? Use your own accent in this one because this email that you're sending off is an introduction of you to them. Bang it off, done. But each casting director, you have to address it specifically to them. Now you can use more or less the same wording, but make sure you don't go, dear all at such and such casting. Send specifically to everybody. They would appreciate it. And here's the thing, because say we'll call it Cork casting, and there's Claire and Tina working in Cork casting. Claire might think you're amazing, but Tina might be like, oh yeah, whatever. But if you do dear all and Tina's in charge of the emails that day, she may not forward your lovely application to everybody, right? So box clever is what I would say. They then will contact you to do self-tapes for auditions. Finding an agent is a whole different kettle of fish. Which maybe I'll chat about finding an agent. People, in a small market, so I'm in Ireland, you can technically have a career without having an agent, but if you want to work in the bigger stuff, or if you're in London, or if you're in the US, you will definitely need an agent. Now, not all agents are created equal, and there is no such thing as the best agent in the world. There is only the best agent for you at this time. So how do you find them? So again, we're going to go, but actually what you do, your first port of call is to yourself, right? So you write down what kind of work that you want to do. So there's no point in going, well, I want to be the lead in a Marvel movie, and then I want to be a Netflix lead for like 7 series, and then I want to open the National Theatre, because they're huge ambitions, right? They're way up here. But if you take a couple of steps back, then you identify, right, what would I like what I love to do. I'd love to work on indie films. Okay, so you just write down indie films and then write down your favorite indie films. And then what you do is you come down again from that list and you're like, right, I'd like to do maybe a couple of TV shows. For me, I'd love to do crime shows, right? So I'll write down a couple of crime shows that are my favorite. And then I will immediately go into IMDb and start researching the cast of those films. And then I will click in and see who's repping those people because they're doing the jobs that I want to do and their agent helps them to do the jobs that I want to do. And they're the agents that I will contact. I will go onto their website and see if there's anyone similar to me. Now, similar to me does not necessarily mean physically similar. It might mean just from an age profile, gender profile, and typing profile. And so have a look. And just because there's someone similar to you doesn't mean that you shouldn't contact them because that person might be booking loads and loads and loads of work, which means there's loads and loads of work available for your type, right? Which means go and contact them because they might need another one of you to make money because an agent's job is to make money for you and money for themselves. So they need to get actors who can book work. When I was looking for my agent, I had certain criteria. So I wanted the agent to be present on IMDb, to have an online website. There are clients who have had specific types of credits, so feature film credits and regular TV credits. By that, I mean her clients would be regularly appearing in the same show. So day, not so much just day players, but series regulars. And I had some other things, like I wanted to have an ease of communication with her. And I wanted her, this is important for me, for her to have a diverse book. So it wasn't just 20 to 25-year-old good looking young white guys. I wanted the whole dynamic. I wanted her to be representing everybody. And when you get specific like that, it means that at the start there's 500 agents. And then when you get specific, oh, there's actually only 10. Then you send your information to your final list. Be brutal with them, right? They are working for you, not you for them. And then arrange a meeting with the ones you want to contact. So you just say, hi, I'm looking for rep. This is my information. This is who I am. These are my credits. I'd like to organize a meeting. They may or may not email you back. If they don't, that's fine. They've taken themselves off the list. But the ones who do email you back, arrange a sit-down meeting. It might be in person or it might be like this, and have a list of questions to ask them. It might be about career trajectory. It might be about how do you like to communicate? Is it on WhatsApp? Is it on email? Is it directly on the phone? And see if you will have a good chemistry, a good working chemistry with those people, because that's really important, that because you're going to trust them with your career. They're going to be representing you to casting directors and directors. This, by the way, goes for directors too, when you guys are looking for representation. But most important, well, not most importantly, one of the big ones is they're going to be financially taking care of you. So you need to trust that they're not going to run away with your money, right? Simple things like that. So that's finding an agent, and take your time in finding the agent. There is no rush whatsoever. And you might have to change agents through your career, because maybe that first agent can only take you to a certain level. That's fine. If you have a good working relationship, when it comes time to make the jump to a different agent who's able to get you in the room a little bit higher up, they will totally understand. Okay, agents, career. Is there anything that people want to know? Because I need a break from talking.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I just have to mention first, I mean, I love everything you said. I love how specific you are and how specific you've been with them. The actionable steps you've said to us all. But if there's anyone here who has any question, please raise your hand or drop a little message in a comment.
Okay.
There's no one for now. If it's okay, I have a couple for you.
I'll keep talking.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You want to? Okay, yeah.
Oh no, go on. What were you going to say?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, yeah. Just a couple of questions, if that's okay. I guess. I mean.
Oh yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So this one has to do. My first question has to do with asking questions.
Yeah.
And networking.
Yeah.
I guess the question goes, what advice would you have for an introvert as an actor or a director?
Um, okay, so you'd be surprised the number of introverts who work in the industry, because outsiders seem to think our industry is about showing off, whereas actually it's not. It's about revealing the parts of, for actors anyway, it is about revealing the parts of the character and of yourself that no one else sees, but you have to be brave enough to let the camera see it. So whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, the best practice and the best way forward would be to operate from a place of absolute self-acceptance. So if you are an introvert and you find perhaps in-person networking really difficult, the best tip that I ever got was that might be coming from a place where you feel needy and you understand instinctively that neediness probably isn't attractive, because when you're going networking, basically, right, what you're looking for is to make connections with people who will then employ you, right? That fundamentally, that's what's going on. But then you must think to yourself, well, why would they employ me? What have I got to offer? And this is where self-acceptance comes into being confident, regardless of your personality type, right? So I go to networking events in person or on Zoom going, right, what are the skills that I can offer someone? So I am a really good actor. I love doing script analysis. I love helping people. I don't necessarily want a part in their film, but if they need a table read, I'm your woman. I'm there. I'm there to give you feedback on what might or might not work for an actor. So those are the things that I go to a networking event going, right, who here can I help? And what can I offer them from me that no one else is going to offer them? And it's more or less those three things. Because if I were to flip it and go, oh my God, hi, will you give me a part in your film? It doesn't work. So networking is about giving, not taking. And if you are an introvert, identify what your preferred means of contacting someone is. If it's email, bite the bullet. Girl, don't hold yourself back. Don't let that be the thing that stops you from working with someone who could be potentially a career-long collaborator. Just email them. And you have to be emotionally intelligent to work in this industry. So the chances are they're going to read from you, because your personality will be present. Oh, this person is a bit of an introvert. So they'll tailor their response to you to suit. Does that make sense? And if they don't, cross them off your list. Don't be afraid to say no to people if they make you feel in any way uncomfortable or they don't accept you. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think it does. Yeah, that was very well put. My second question would be about, you talked a lot about patience in industry, patience specifically during training. You understand that the job is never done. You never know enough. And you have to be patient. So this is a bit of a general question. I apologize, but like, how do you teach yourself this simple quality, just the quality of patience? How do you teach yourself that?
So you need to be humble. You need to understand that as you said, you're never going to know everything, and it's like there's always something to learn. And I trained a little bit at Bow Street, which is the screen specific acting school here in Ireland. And they taught a thing as, no, don't end game. And what they meant by that was, they meant it in a scene context, right? But I apply it to my whole career. So say you get a scene and you go, right, and I know there's someone watching who will understand what I'm saying. I'm going to cry at the fourth line. And then you're building yourself up to cry. And that means that you're not present if you're only thinking about crying on that fourth line. So I would say patience comes from being present. And then we're talking about what is being present. And it is just, again, we're going back to that thing again, self-acceptance. And if you can accept that you are where you are in your life, in your career, in your development with your skills, you can't then become bitter. And bitterness is the enemy of creativity, because you'll see your scene partner or you'll see your classmates suddenly booking roles that you didn't even get taped for. But you have to trust yourself at your own pace, because the only thing any artist has to offer the world is themselves, is the specific, unique qualities that you have as a storyteller, and we're all storytellers, however way we choose to tell the story. And you have to understand that you're legitimate, and it might take you 5 years to book a lead. It might take you 15 years. It might take you 35 years. But each of those years, if you are authentic and legitimately yourself, by the time it comes, it will be brilliant. No, like, it's like, I suppose it's a bit like, if we want to use the analogy of food, right? There's a big difference between something cooked in a microwave and something slow cooked, right? Be the slow cooked, lovely meal. It's far more nutritious, healthier, and more, and actually people will enjoy it more. But just take your time, and importantly, right, you need to be joyful, happy, and excited when your classmates do well, because it is a really tough industry. And if you can celebrate their wins, then you can legitimately celebrate your own, even if it happens way down the line. So be happy for people when something happens, and don't judge yourself against them, right? Because you're two different people, you're two different artists, completely different. Again, if I say it again, rewind myself, the only thing that you have to offer is yourself, and there's only one of you. So there's no competition. Your competition isn't Mary, who's over here, right? Or Sarah, who's here. Your competition is none of those things. You do not have competition. It's a myth that we're gaslit into thinking that we should be competitive with each other. If you're competitive with anything, if it is probably the idea of the character that may or not be in the director's head. Other than that, there's nothing and no one fighting you. Does that make sense? I don't know if I've answered the question.
Yes, it does. Oh my goodness, yes, it does. I hope the people who see this like get to understand, like, this is quality stuff. You really did answer my question. Thank you very much. But I have a few comments, but that, I guess we'll leave that to the very end. So if you could please go on with if you please go on with the session, if this, yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about direction, right? So for actors and for directors, and I've kind of cobbled together a little thing here, right? So about auditioning, self-taping, and on-set direction. So for the directors, right, if you're casting something, right, and you're going, right, I'm going to spread the net really wide, and I'm going to ask actors to self-tape. Here's what you should be sending them: the sides that you want them to tape, so that's the little bit of the script, a description of the character, and what would be super useful, oh my God, would be just a little nugget of direction. If it's tonal direction, physical direction, and energy, do something to communicate what's in your head, in your imagination, to the actor. And then ask, what I find useful anyway, is if the director is given space for the actor to do exactly what the director has asked them to do. So include the direction in your communication with the actor. And one for the actor. Let the actor do whatever they want to do, because there you might find a little bit of gold, and that's where you might find the person to play your role. But then how do you give that direction when you have yet to meet them? So I find sometimes directors afraid to give notes on things, and I don't know why. Maybe they have come across unprofessional actors before, or actors who are too defensive to take direction. But what I find useful is if you give a direction that isn't particularly about the scene, but maybe about something that happened before the scene. So we do something simple, right? A woman comes into a coffee shop, orders a cup of coffee, but the barista gets her order wrong, right? That's the scene. Very simple. But if the director is like, okay, so I want you to do one where it's super early in the morning and you're a morning person, that scene is going to be completely different to if the director gives the direction, okay, so now I want you to do it where it's in the evening, you're freezing, you got caught in the rain, your umbrella turned inside out, now enter the scene. That's a direction that an actor can actually do, as opposed to, I want you to pause on that word and scratch your chin. That's not a direction. Go away from me. I'm not interested in working with that, right? That's not a proper direction. Equally, the actors, you need to be receptive to receiving the direction. And that's what that kind of thing I'm talking about is at auditioning stage. So we pretend now we're on set, right? If you have your wits about you, you have done rehearsal with your actors, and so you've given some direction in there. So you need, as a director, to establish your own specific directing language, and the actors also need to develop their own specific directing language. So some actors who I know will go, this scene feels kind of orange to me, and you're going, I've no idea what that is, but to them it makes sense, right? But when you get down to them talking about it to a director, go, oh, is the scene orange? And the director's going, oh my God, this actor is demented. The actor might go, no, what I mean by that is like, it's fresh, it's zesty, it's morning, it's good mood. That's what I mean. The scene is happy, it's light, it's up. But for someone else, it might mean, oh no, the scene is like 5 cups of coffee in. Right. So whatever the way you want to communicate, you need to establish it. The only way to establish it is to practice, practice, practice. So I would say this, and it helps with your networking as well. Actors, directors, team up, find people in your neighborhood and book a room, use one of your own rooms in your house and practice filming scenes. So the actors get to practice acting and the directors get to practice directing. Doesn't matter what the frame is, right? That's irrelevant, completely irrelevant. And practice developing a language that helps you to communicate what you want to the actors, and actors practice asking the director, you need to be clear on that, I don't understand what it is, or communicating how you like to work or receive direction. So that brings me on to auditions. How do you audition actors? So directors, what I find, tend to get really nervous about auditioning, particularly in the room auditions, because you're afraid of being judged. 1, no, the actors are not judging you. 2, no, the actors don't expect you to have all the answers. And 3, the actors are nervous too. But what they do want is for information from you, right? So you might go in, some actors, when they go into the room, there's a little bit of chit chat that happens. That's getting to know you. But some actors might go, can we just do the scenes first and then we can have the chat? That's not them being difficult. That's them just really, they're in the zone and they're ready to go. So don't take it as a judgment on you. And if the scene isn't going the way that you would like to do, or you would like it, don't be afraid of insulting the actor. They're only dying to have some direction from you. So say something like, okay, let's go again. And this time I'd like you to think about this or think about that, right? So thinking is a great kind of way of giving direction, asking the actor to think about something. And if the actor is confused, they will just ask, or else you should be able to ask. Now, what I'm talking about, that scenario, is a really privileged situation to be in, or privileged position, because you're down to the last 2 or 3, the way in terms of your casting choices. And so you should kind of know their work by the time you get to that part of casting anyway. Self-taping. Don't be afraid to send redirects on self-tapes. So that means you've seen the self-tape, you've gone boom, boom, boom. Okay, ooh, there's something about that middle section. Oh, I'd love it. I just wish they'd had just done this. Feel free to send a redirect. Oh my God, actors love to get a redirect on a tape, because then what you've done is you've accepted what the actor has done, liked what the actor has done, and want to see more. What the actor has done is presented their version of the character to you. They know that you've engaged with it, and now you get a chance to work collaboratively with them on that. So what was I going to say? I'm just having a little look through my notes here. Actors, I told you already, I think there won't be time for you to warm up. So warm up. What I do is I will warm up say if you're put up in a hotel, I'll warm up in the hotel room, even though it could be 4 o'clock in the morning, which is a disaster. But you do try and do your little bit of a warm up before you go. Use the makeup share time and hair when you're getting your hair and makeup done. Use that effectively. Do whatever mental preparation you need to do, because by the time you get on set, there's no time to waste. Time is money, and there is no space for, oh, let's play around, right? Because that should have been done in rehearsal, or you've had to do it yourself in your own preparation. Also know this, because I know there's a few very experienced actors who might be watching, but It's very rare on set for another take to happen because an actor has dropped a line, right? It's usually because, oh, we want to go, it could be something technical that's happened, or from the performance point of view, the director has wanting to lean a little bit more into a particular tone or beat or whatever it might be. But know that it is a myth that actors get endless takes for lines. You've got to be off book 100% by the time you get picked up in the morning to be driven to set, which is tough, right? So line learning is a difficult thing for some people. If, for example, you're dyslexic and you might need your lines a little bit earlier, say it. Oh my God, don't hide that. Don't pretend that that isn't a thing. Tell the casting director and tell whoever's looking after you in production, say, can I get my lines a bit earlier? I'm dyslexic and it's going to take me longer to learn them. Or you might need someone to read opposite you. They might send an assistant in to hair and makeup just to run your lines with you, but they're only going to do that if you ask, right? Don't ever be afraid of any of that. You're not going to get a job because you're dyslexic. They'll work around you. There's a load of people who are dyslexic in the industry, so it's not something. But a friend of mine is dyslexic, and he hid it for a very long time. And then he just came to the end of his tether and he said it, and someone said, oh yeah, no bother. And they just sent the script a little bit earlier. So, he was making his life very difficult for a long time, unnecessarily. And you need to find your own way into learning your lines too. It's going to be different for every actor. And another thing, don't allow yourself to be directed by your scene partner. You must take total ownership and protection of whatever you're deciding to do with the character. Because sometimes that direction from the other actor is coming from a place of that actor wanting to make themselves look good, but it might also be coming from a place of wanting to make you look bad, right? So just guard yourself against that, and be specific in your approach to a character. I don't really want to get into that because it's different for every actor. I do kind of want to just keep this conversation to really practical things that you can do. I just do rehearsals, acting. Yeah, so acting classes, right, online or in person. If you booked a big job, book in an acting class before you go to that big job, because you'd be primed and ready. Okay, don't go, oh, I started to book work, now I'm finished. That's the time when you need to be really upping your game when you're stuck, because you don't want the momentum to stop. And you certainly don't want it to stop because you've stalled in your progression as an artist. You've got to keep working. I think I've said that enough. Okay, pitfalls, self-taping. I was involved in the casting of something a little while ago, right? And here are the basic things. Actors, you need to follow the instructions that the casting director is sending you in terms of the dates that the thing has to be in, your deadline, and how you label the file. So you've shot your self-tape. I edit mine on iMovie, something that, yeah. And then I'll reduce the file size and email it to the casting director or via my agent, but you have got to label it correctly. That's really important. I guarantee you, people have auditioned for major roles and things and have been perfect, but the casting director couldn't find their self-tape because they didn't label it properly, right? You please, if you do nothing else, right, label your self-tape properly. There should be instructions. And if there aren't instructions, what I would suggest you do is your label should be the name of the project, the name of the character, and then your name. That's the basic way that I would do, because then you're findable in loads of different ways. But you'd be so surprised about the number of people who make that mistake. Directors, if you're asking for self-tapes, be specific in what you want. I don't expect to be, the actor to be able to produce so I want you to shoot at this angle and then I want you to shoot at that angle. This, what you're looking at here roughly is a self-taping angle. It's a bit low, but roughly this is what you're going to get. And directors, when you're asking actors to self-tape, pay attention to the scene you're asking them to do. So I had to self-tape a scene in which I was the passenger in a car that crashed, and then I got impaled on the horn of or the antler of a deer. That was a self-tape. I didn't have to speak. I had to sing along to a song. Right? That was an impossible self-tape. So please keep an eye on what you're asking actors to do. If they're really action scenes, they're really difficult because it probably means the person has got to move to a space that requires them to do the fight or whatever it is that you're asking them to do. Like, so just pay attention a little bit. Understand that you're not, giving the self-tape to a director who's got loads of director of photography friends who can whip out a dolly and then do this amazing self-tape. You're talking to an actor who probably has their phone balanced like that on a whole load of books, right? So if the scene can be filmed like that, it's a goer for a self-tape. But if you require anything else, pay attention to yourself. Cop on. It's not going to happen. We don't know what we're doing when it comes to directing a scene like that, right? Okay. And directors, for auditioning, I don't think I have anything else to say about that, but just know that like everyone is nervous, and don't hold back information about the project or the character. Just don't presume that we know. And if you're asking an actor to tape for something, it's a cold call, you've never worked with them before, you like their work and you're approaching them to tape for something, don't be afraid to do that, but include maybe a link to some of your previous work. But say you're your first time director, maybe give them some inclination about the type of films that you like and what your inspiration for this current project is, because that will help the actor to tape and interpret the script that you're sending them with an eye to that, knowing that that's what your creative goal will be. Okay, right, I've spoken about, okay, right, so say you're an actor and a director and you've booked a job and you got paid. Now this is super practical and very personal advice about money, right? Cover your living expenses, obviously, first. And if you can, put a little bit of money back into yourself, as in you as a business. So that might, for actors, mean investing in Spotlight or any of those casting network things. They're different in different markets. It might be buying a new camera or a new phone or a new self-taping setup. For the director, it might be like script writing, which I know a lot of directors, you tend to double up directing your own work. It might be buying software, and put money aside for your taxes. My God, please promise me you'll pay your taxes. And also, this is actually really important, treat yourself. Anytime you get any bit of a win, treat yourself to something. So put a little percentage of that money that you get paid. You might only be able to afford a fancy coffee with a cupcake, or you might be able to afford something that's non-work related. So no fancy new lenses, no fancy headshots, no classes, because all of that should have been taken care of before. The bit that's left over, do something for yourself and have a life that outside of being a director or being an actor, because you need to be a well-rounded human being in order to do a really good job. You can't just be that one thing. You can't just be an actor and you can't just be a director, because otherwise where are you, drawing your inspiration for your work from if you only ever behind a camera or you're only ever in front of a camera? Doesn't really make sense. And I was going to say something there now after losing my train of thought. I spoke about that. I spoke about minding yourself. Yeah, you need to mind your mental health as well, because it's a tough industry. And also we're expected to expose so much of ourselves, our vulnerability, and be open, which can be really difficult if that's rejected or if it's received not particularly well by critics. And you have to toughen up, but not be so tough as to be harsh or bitter. And it's a difficult balance that only comes with time. And it takes a long time to get used to the realities of working on film. Actually, as we're talking here about the realities of working on film, let's not sort of skirt over set safety, and actually audition safety as well. If something is happening at an audition, if something is happening in class, if something is happening on set that makes you feel uncomfortable or you feel that someone is physically in danger, walk off. Because I guarantee you, 98% of those other people who are standing there with their mouths open wish they had the courage to do the same thing and will back you. But if you feel unsafe, there's nothing worth being unsafer in this industry. That's nothing. If you feel intimidated on set, take a step back. I promise you there will be support there and people will have your back on it. It was really interesting during the whole Me Too movement when all these people started coming forward with their stories, the number of people who went, yeah, the same thing happened to me. So know that there are shared experiences out there that you don't have to be tolerating. Just because it's happening doesn't mean it's real, and you need to have ownership over it, or doesn't mean that it's acceptable, not real. It doesn't mean that you should be accepting the thing that's happening. Who do you contact then? Say if you're on set and something is weird is going on, so you ring your agent, you can speak to one of the production staff, depending on what it is that's happening, the other actors, but never be afraid to speak out about something, ever be afraid, because you will find the support there. I try and think of things that happened to me on set that I've kind of been lucky in that regard. There was one occasion where there was a little bit of bullying going on from someone who wasn't a director, who was giving direction. But in the end, what happened in that, so I was on set working with another actor, and someone who wasn't the director but who was behind the camera was trying to direct the other actor. And the other actor was kind of looking at me going, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So I just said, ignore it. So we just stood there, we didn't do anything. And then the director came in with his direction. So what was happening there was a situation in which this actor was being bullied and the director. But just by taking a tiny little stand against it, it stopped, it shut it down. And then the director felt encouraged to come forward and continue on with the scene. But that's I would say it was a bad experience, but I've been lucky enough not to have any of those bad experiences. But I want you to understand that if you do have a bad experience, share it, report it, and don't be afraid, because there's so many people who will have your back on it. Actors, you should also take script writing courses to understand the structure of a screenplay and to improve your script analysis and your scene analysis and character development. And because most of the directors will also have been script writing, because I think people tend to direct their own work a lot of the time, particularly in their early career. And so for actors, you can do the same. You don't necessarily have to ever film or produce any of these things that you're writing yourself, but you have to have an understanding of scene structure and script structure. Ooh, that's hard to say. Script structure. Okay. I think I've rambled quite a lot, actually. I'm just going through those things. Oh, just another thing, because I know we're a film festival, for actors, learn theatre technique as well. Don't be exclusively film. Someone said something to me recently, which I thought was really funny. She was a theatre actor, like in amateur circles, and she said, "Oh, I'm thinking of making the move to screen because I don't really like learning lines." Right. So acting is more than learning lines. Lines is probably the last thing you do, because you've got a lot of preparation work, character development work to fill in. The way I look at it is, if you print off your script and you count the number of white spaces that are there, your job is to fill those white spaces with the life of the character. So you've got a big job to do. So it isn't just about learning lines. However, stage technique and doing plays will give you stamina, physical stamina and mental stamina to be able to concentrate for extended periods of time, would be what I would say. Okay, I think I'm finished talking for a while. Unless anyone has anything.
That was brilliant, though. Yeah, that was brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, I do have one thing that I feel like I would appreciate if you could expand on. It is I've heard you in the past speak about being late to industry. And how we as a society and the industry itself needs to unlearn what we mean by that. Yeah. So if you could talk a bit about that, that would be appreciated. I think anyone can relate to that word, by the way, being late to industry. So if you could talk a bit about that. Yeah.
So I didn't become an actor until I was about 32, which is very late, particularly for a woman. Because I came into industry at an age when the roles for women start to decrease. Now, things are changing in that regard. But what's very interesting is when I meet new casting directors, I don't mean they're new, I mean they're new to me, right? They kind of approach me with a level of suspicion about, well, where were you until now? I'm like, doing other things, dude. Like, not all of us can just go straight into being an actor. So my life, right? So I went to college and I studied to be an archaeologist, and I hated every second of it. And then I left that to work in retail. I worked in fashion. I worked in loads of different things. And eventually my anxiety actually got the better of me. And I went to the doctor and I said, I actually haven't slept in 3 months. What's going on? And she said, you're anxious beyond like what's acceptable and you're not allowed to go back to work. So she wrote me out of work. So I could not, she physically wouldn't allow me to return to working in, at that time it was retail. And she said, what would you love to do? And I said, well, you know, I'd love to be an actor. And she said, well, there you go. And I haven't been anxious since the day I started to train to be an actor. So that's how late I am right into it now. In saying that, acting isn't therapy for me, or, you know, a mental health treatment. It's my job, right? But what was happening was I was denying the creative part of me. So I got to industry relatively late. And this industry is very much about youth, and youth is currency, and to be young is to be worth more and valued more than to be older. And older starts at 30. Well, for women, it starts at 30. For men, it starts at 75, apparently. But there we go. That's the difference. But it's never, ever too late to come into the industry, particularly, I think, since the streamers have come on board. So your Amazons, your Netflix, and your Apples, right? And whatever other ones are out there. Because what they are finding, I read the article and I've lost the link, right, is the more niche the character, the bigger the audience, right? So there are people will watch stories, even though I haven't watched it yet, the Korean thing that took 10 years to make Squid Games, right? Let's think about how niche that is. But the industry is changing because our market is no longer just the country you're living in or just the US market. It is global, and it's instantaneously global. So there is a market out there for everyone. And I suppose me using the term market can feel dirty because we're all want to tell these beautiful, creative, artistic stories that aren't, you know, soiled by market. However, it's a reality. We're working in an industry, and so you have to accept that, right? That what the market wants, we kind of have to give them. But up until relatively recently, we've been told that what the market wanted was young American boys. But we all know that that's not true. But the rest of the world knows that's not true. We know it's not true, but industry is only just now catching up. So that's kind of what I meant by late to industry. So when you're a new, fresh face does not necessarily mean 17 years old, right? They could be 52, but they're new to an audience, and an audience, now that it's sort of democratized, an audience will accept whatever is presented to them. Am I making sense in that way? Yeah, and that was that's my experience of that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like what you just said right there about you know, the nicheness of things and how the industry is just starting to catch up with the fact that film as an art form is something that is not just for a certain group of people. It's something that
Yeah.
is appreciated worldwide, you know, and these different worlds are segmented into different markets with different interests, and they
Yeah.
want to see more than what we've been seeing for the past 50, 60 years, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, and they are not as the audience of planet Earth. They are not as they will not be as scared to a new phase as, you know, the industry thinks they
No.
would. So yeah,
No.
it's crazy how, you know, it's something that we all understand, but you know, the industry is just like, yeah, I don't think so. And now thanks to streaming, they're starting to understand these things, and the research is coming up. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's really great. Yeah, because I guess, you know, everyone here, regardless of anyone watching, anyone who inspires to you know, break into this industry, anyone um who's working with this festival understands that they're going to be new to industry, but regardless of well, I mean, depending who they are. I mean, independent of
Yeah.
what identity they encompass, they would be seen as related to the industry. So is why I feel it's something that everyone can relate to, and is
Yeah.
why I feel this festival is prime for understanding this kind of concept, given the fact that we are all about inclusivity and representation. But yeah, I've always been fascinated when I first learned that phrase relates to industry. I was very
Yeah.
fascinated by you bringing it up and you wanting to
Yeah.
understand and yeah speak to the world about unlearning that phrase and changing the way we the meaning of the
Yeah.
phrase. So
Well,
yes,
do you know
why I
what?
bring it up.
The first time I heard that phrase, I had an audition with a casting director who I was years trying to get in front of. Now, not decades, because I'm not in it that long, right? But he finally gave me a self tape, and my agent said, "Oh my god, he actually really likes you." And I was like, "All right, girl, like, of course he does." But she didn't mean it like that, you know. So he wanted to have a Zoom meeting with me. So we had a Zoom, and he went, "So yeah, you're late to industry. Why?" And I was like, "Wow, I didn't realize there was a timetable. Like no one told me. No one gave me my invitation." But that's another thing. There are no invitations, right? No one's inviting you in. You are entitled to be in it. Don't wait for someone to invite you. Just barge in, right? We have this idea that there's gatekeepers there. They're not. Just walk right in or climb over the gate. But like, don't let anyone stop you doing your job or your passion. And you're saying like the industry is kind of changing and all of that. And then part of me is also thinking, well, why don't we just start again over here where women are the center of the industry? Why are we trying to break into this already established thing that treats it like crap? Why don't we just start again, make our own rules, do whatever we want without asking for permission? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just no, don't
Yeah.
don't ask for permission and don't apologize for anything unless you've been nasty. But you won't be
Yeah,
nasty.
yeah,
Just go
unless you're in the
for it.
wrong.
Yeah, and like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying there about inclusivity, like it's so important, and audiences I think sometimes are spoon fed and babied a little bit. Like so, I always think about you had I'm in Ireland. I know people are from all over the world here, but in Ireland, the TV series The Wire was hugely popular, right? So you had people in rural Ireland in their 50s and 60s who turned on the subtitles to learn the language of what was going on in The Wire and stuck with it passionately because they were involved in the story. They cared about these drug dealing characters, but they loved them because it was good storytelling and they had access to it. There was no way that a person would go and try and figure out a way of getting access to that, but they put it out into the world. The makers put it out into the world, and the world responded passionately and respectfully, and gave themselves time to understand what was going on and understood that actually what we're watching here is quality. I don't really know what's going on, but I'm enjoying it. And then taught themselves to understand what was happening. And it's like the Korean film that won, Parasite.
The
People
Yeah,
watched that
yeah.
with subtitles. So, like, people are willing to put
Yeah,
that
it's
little bit of work
insane.
in.
It's so
Yeah, it's
funny how it wasn't until I had moved to Ireland myself that I understood that there was actually this gap between people and subtitles, because where I'm from, we have access to almost all kinds of movies. So we watched a lot of Chinese movies from the 70s, a lot of Indian movies from, today,
oh,
Bollywood,
you're
Indian
lucky.
movies
Yeah,
all over. Yeah, yeah, you can say we're lucky because I mean we
yeah,
watched the subtitles without question. You
yeah,
understand? It was just not. So I came here and I was more exposed to the West and the way things were being done in the West, and I realized for a fact that people see subtitles as a bit of a gap, but it's sort of changing, and it's a good thing obviously, but even though it's a
yeah,
slow change and it's like way overdue, so it's something to think about, really. It's something to think about and something to be really grateful for that we're finally there. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and not
Yeah.
be afraid. Like I think audiences definitely are willing to do just a little bit of the work, and reading subtitles isn't that difficult, really, is it? When
It
you have
isn't.
all of these other visual cues coming at you about what's really going on.
Exactly. It really isn't. It just, it's amazing. I love that you brought that up. But yeah, I guess the two other things I would love to mention. So this is more personal to you and your
Yeah,
interests. I would love to bring up would be, this is kind of a funny question, I guess, but this is earlier on in the session you talked about accents, and as an actor,
Yeah.
the kind of the kind of accents, given what you want to work on, and given the
Yeah.
fact that you're a beginner, what you should probably, understand and be good at to begin with. But you as an actor, like, do you find yourself outside of work having a wandering accent by any chance? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so it can it depends on who you're. Well, actors anyway. So I'm quite good at accents, right? Because I've had good training in accents, and so what can happen is you can pick up a person's accent in a conversation, and then what happens is your accent starts up here, and this other person's, and then this happens during the conversation. You kind of not mimic, but it's only because you're listening. And when it comes to accents, right? As long as you can be understood, try to keep your own accent. There is a really traditional school of thought that accents should all sound a little bit British, even, in different markets. When you're speaking English now, I'm talking, right? And those days are gone, right? So own your own accent. It's totally, whatever your accent is, it's perfectly fine to perform in your accent. It should be your first port of call, unless a casting director or a director has asked otherwise. When it comes to accent training, what I find useful, I can, even though I'm good at them, I can't drop into an accent and be precise and specific. So what I do is I love listening to podcasts, right? Particularly crime podcasts. I'm that basic one, right? I will listen to podcasts from the country whose accent I need to work in. And I will speak, this is going to sound demented now, but I speak back to the people who are in the podcast, and I join in the conversation. And if you are working on an accent, try and listen to a native speaker who is the same gender, and preferably, if you can at all, find out the same level of education as the character you're auditioning for, because it can change an accent. And what if you were very advanced, is if you have a really juicy role in something, when you're talking about there, if your accent drifts, which happens to a lot of people. But what's really fascinating would be to play a character who, when they're in work, have one kind of an accent, and then a slightly different accent from when they're at home with their friends, so that they're in a different mode. Does that make sense? It's like, that would be, I would watch that as an actor. I'd love the challenge of being able, given the freedom to do that. But and accent. I once did an audition for an American film in which I was told my Irish accent, like I've only ever lived in Ireland, right? I'm 100% Irish. I'm surrounded by Irish accents. And I was told my Irish accent wasn't Irish enough. I thought it was hilarious.
I can imagine. Well, my whole life anyway, I can relate to that unbelievably so accurately, because I can relate to that, because I've been told my whole life that I don't sound like where I'm from. It's like, okay, cool. And this is from people who've probably never been to where I'm from. So it's like, you say so, it's such a strange thing to come to terms with, but maybe there is some truth to it. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll never know.
Yeah, but that's probably because people, up until relatively recently, have only ever been exposed to such a narrow variety of people. But now things are changing, so our ears are becoming more sophisticated. I hope.
Like, what a lovely time to be alive, really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, younger people coming into this industry now, you're coming in at a really brilliant time.
I know, right? Like, thank God for this festival. Like, this is something we could have definitely used years ago. But yeah, definitely. So lastly, this little comment / questions to do with your interest in fashion history. I just had to mention, because like I mentioned, I instantly stalked you, and I noticed that you had an obsession, so to speak, with 70s vintage patterns.
Yes, I do.
Interest there. So please tell me about that. Tell us about that.
It starts in cinema.
Where that started, what that's like, and it always starts in cinema, and how that helps you in industry, how you feel you benefit as an actor, with this.
Oh, right, okay. God, I don't know if it benefits as well, actually it probably does, in terms of having an interest outside of acting, right? But it started in cinema. So I grew up in the 80s in Ireland, and in Ireland we didn't produce our own films or anything, and on our TV stations we would see the old American films. And I loved all the old American I shouldn't have been watching them. Like, I was a child and I was watching like thrillers and horrors from the 70s, right? But my favorite show was Columbo. which is a 70s detective series, which they should absolutely bring back with Mark Ruffalo. If you Google Columbo and then Google Mark Ruffalo, they're interchangeable, right? So that's where it started in cinema. And also, like, it started from not having money to, to spend on new clothes. So I would go and buy in secondhand shops. They would just happen to be from the 70s because I liked the look of them. And now, because my mom is a dressmaker, so she has a sewing machine. I got myself a sewing machine a couple of years ago, and then I started to buy patterns from the internet so I could make my own. Now I'm really bad at dressmaking, but I love it. Like, I put on my crime podcast and I'm sewing away. I haven't a clue what I'm doing, but anyway, I try. And I do collect 70s clothes. My dream role would be in something like set in the 70s. I would love it, and I would steal all of my costumes. Oh, I don't know. I just put it up hanging in my trailer. It's gone now, and it's in my suitcase. That would be me.
Oh my goodness, that sounds amazing. I think we'd all love to see you in that. Like, I hope you get some film like that. So yeah.
Me too.
I particularly asked this question. Yeah, I particularly asked this question because I know there are a lot of people in our generation who have this interest and express this interest through social media, through YouTube videos. You know, it's like there is a big industry for people who look back at the clothes from those days, and there a lot of the inspiration comes from film. It comes from film and TV.
Yeah.
So you definitely have like minds here at the festival, I must say.
But also, I think too, you know, interest in fashion and dressing up is a particularly feminine thing, and it was poo-pooed for so long. Like, to be interested in fashion was like, oh, there are bigger things in the world, and you're like, yeah, but there's nothing more fun than dress up, like, whatever. So embrace whatever it is that's your thing. Like, I don't apologize for it. God, we do enough of that.
Exactly. God, I feel like we went to the tangent there. But if there's nothing else, if there's no other question and there's nothing else to add, I guess that's it for screen performance. If you have something to say to round it up, nice.
Oh God, putting pressure on me there now.
Only thing, a little quotes or something.
The only thing I would say is, if you practice self-acceptance and be authentic to yourself, you can only ever be successful. That's it. Just be yourself and honest about yourself. That's all. That's the only thing you can offer the world, because it's the only thing that's specific and unique to you. And don't be ashamed of yourself or apologetic about yourself. And don't wait for other people to accept you. If you accept yourself, that will take care of everything else. That's it.
True. Thank you so much, Claire.
You're very welcome.
It was nice to have you here. Really appreciate your time and everything.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right.